Welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. In the studio today with me is Troy Siebels, the president and CEO of the Hanover Theater and the Conservatory for the Performing Arts. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And I believe this is the first time you've been in the studio.
It is.
And we have quite a bit to talk about. There's so much going on in the city right now, in the theater and everywhere surrounding the theater. And you seem to wear so many hats because in addition to being president and CEO of the theater and the conservatory, you're chair of the board of Discover Central Mass, which is a bunch of regional chambers essentially, and with a goal of providing more tourism to the area.
That's right. It's the tourism bureau that serves Worcester and South Worcester County, the central Massachusetts area. It funnels up to Mass Office of Travel and Tourism.
Okay, excellent. You're also on the board of the Massachusetts Cultural Council,
Yep.
The MCC, and you were in Worcester Business Journal named to their Power 50 list this year. What a guy. A list of top influencers in the city. You're a father of two. And I read in print that you said you called yourself Batman.
You know, you read the Worcester Business Journal, it's kind of dry. You want something a little bit more entertaining. I was making a joke, but in truth, I can neither confirm nor deny rumors that I may be a superhero.
Because you may be a cultural superhero. Can we say that? Because you're truly an ambassador for Central Mass and the city, which is the second largest city in New England, which people don't recognize. I mean, we have theater and places to go in Hartford, Providence, Boston, Worcester, Concord, New Hampshire, Manchester, but we are the second biggest city, and there's so much going on. And everything you do seems to have a similar mission of making people want to come to Worcester and have an incredible experience. So before we go into the exciting things happening with the theater, we have to talk about some other exciting things that are going to impact the business in the area, one of which obviously is I have to ask you about your thoughts on the Pawtucket Red Sox coming here and the building of Polar Park. What do you think?
I think it's great. I think that I'm truly a rising tide floats all boats guy, and I think that it's a great thing for the city. I think that it will bring more activity. I think it will bring new development to a blighted piece of the downtown. And I think, sure, in the short term, I think there are concerns in the nonprofit community that it'll suck up some energy and some philanthropic dollars. But if you take the long view, I think that it's a good thing for all of us.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So when you say nonprofits are worrying about it suck up dollars, in what way?
Well, I think that our corporations, certainly in Worcester, have limited dollars to spend, and then the nonprofits, particularly the smaller nonprofits, depend on sponsorships, those sorts of things. And the Red Sox will be pushing for sponsorships and those sorts of things as well. I'm not sure that it will be an issue. I'm just voicing a concern I've heard. But honestly, I don't mean to overstate that issue. I really believe that we as a city have more than the capacity to support both. And again, in the long run, I think it's a great thing.
Well, I mean, people can make a weekend of it. They can go eat. They can go to the theater. They can see a game one day. They can go see a game one day, go to the theater at night, stay in one of the great new hotels. And really, you've talked in the past about it's not just the theater. It's making it an experience.
That's right. It's about making it a city where you want to live, you want to work, and you want to go play. You want to come visit. That's what we're doing downtown and in the theater district, is trying to do everything that we can to make it a neighborhood where you proud to come visit. When you've got your in-laws come to town, this is the area you want to drive through and show them. But it's not just for Worcester. It's for, let's take a 50-mile radius. Mm-hmm. And we want to bring people into Worcester to see a baseball game, to see a musical, to see a museum. We want to be a destination.
Right. And I think those pieces are slowly coming together.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, we have the tours, you and I were talking about, the number, because I noticed, I'm a big fan of the theater, especially the Broadway series. And when I was in the parking garage, I looked at other cars, and I can't tell you how many plates I saw: Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. So I thought to myself and asked you, what are the numbers like? And you said about 80% of your the people who come to the performances or to the theater are from out of the city.
Out of the city, that's right.
And 20% from Worcester itself.
That's right. In fact, when we first opened in 2008, it was about the reverse, 80% from Worcester and 20% everywhere else. And it's not that the Worcester audience has shrunk, of course. It's just that the theater's reach continues to grow every year, and audiences come from a wider and wider circle. And actually, that's even to say 20% is from Worcester is a little misleading, because there's some big numbers that fit into that. When we do student matinees, we bring in the entire Worcester school department to see a Shakespeare show every spring, and to see matinees of A Christmas Carol in the fall. I think if the average ticket buying public, it's less than 20% from the city, which is a positive thing. It means that 80% of the audience, or more than 160,000 people a year, come from outside Worcester to downtown Worcester to see a musical.
Which is incredible, because we have listeners on our stations from all over the region: southern New Hampshire, northern Connecticut, northern Rhode Island. And so many people listening may have been to a show at the Hanover or not. And we want to explain to them why they should come here, because people have choices. People know that they can go, if you live in the general region, you can go to Boston to see a show. You can go to Providence to see a show. But what is it about the theater in Worcester and the Hanover that makes this such a great destination? But also, as you say, you want people to come from outside of the city, but the city is working very hard to make the downtown area, all of Main Street really, but also your area, the theater district, more walkable, more rideable for bikes, and many more residential buildings, so that people will come and find it as an area and as a district that they want to live in. It reminds me of the areas of Boston, like Beacon Hill, where you have Charles Street, or certain areas like that. Now, how about the MGM Casino? They're in Springfield, which technically is not Central Mass. But I've heard, people rumblings about people saying, oh no, how is that going to affect the venues in Worcester? Are people going to go to the casino if they have concerts? Is that going to affect the DCU Center? Is it going to affect the theater? What's your take on that?
I think that the theaters like ours, presenting theaters, not a producing theater company, but a performing arts center that presents touring artists and shows, have sort of a unique threat from casinos, potential threat from resort casinos. In the casinos generally present entertainment as a way to help draw people through the doors, and then their business model is such that those people they fund the casino by losing money at the slot machines, right? If you've got a way to not do that, they'll tell me later. But generally speaking, that's the business model. I did
win on a nickel slot, the only one and only time I've been to a casino.
Well, I'm going with you next time. So when a casino books an entertainer or a show, that same entertainer or show signs a exclusion saying that they won't play any other venue within, typically it's 100 miles. And so it really doesn't matter so much if the casino's in Springfield or Boston or Taunton. They're all within 100 miles of any place in the state. So we did a lot of outreach to legislators 7 years ago when they first started debating the gaming statute, and they were receptive. And there are pieces in that statute that help to protect theaters like ours, principally among them the casinos cannot build a venue between 1,000 and 3,500 seats on the casino property itself.
Oh, so that helps you. How many seats are in DCU?
Lot.
I'm not sure.
DCU's bigger. Now, it's 15,000, I think, if it's fully seated all the way up.
But you're 2,300 seats.
We're 2,300.
So you fit in that.
That's right. So I think it helps protect venues like us. I think that because of that, I'm optimistic. And actually, the way that the MGM folks have approached that casino is really refreshing, I have to say. They said early on that they really wanted to be integrated into the community in Springfield and really wanted to be outward facing. And they've really done that. Time will tell, and we'll see what the impact is. But I'm really much more positive about it than I was. I was much more cautious
at the beginning.
Ago.
Sure. Well, and didn't you say, we were talking earlier where you've talked to them about making it kind of a combo destination?
That's right.
Some kind of partnership?
That's right. We've done, we're in a conversation with them once or twice a year about things that we might do together. And again, that sounds like it could be lip service from the casino, but they've really done a little more than lip service in terms of reaching out and talking about ways that they can even collaborate on a show at the Hanover and bring in a bus tour of seniors that might come from Boston and stop and see a show and then go into the casino and play the slots and then go back, those kinds of things.
Well, that makes perfect sense. I hadn't even thought of that. So I don't know how many people realize it's the 10th anniversary of the theater. And you've been there from day one and before, when the idea, the conception came of finding this old relic of a building and restoring it, which is amazing because I think that's part of the experience. I know it is for me and for my daughter. When we go to a theater like Hanover, and the very first show we saw, we were really impressed. You look up at the ceiling, you look at the decor, and it's all of these theaters, Boston too, they're historic buildings. And it takes a lot of money to keep those buildings running, right?
It does. It does. Something like $200,000 to $250,000 a year reinvested back into the historic building. Any big building that sees 200,000 volunteers, whether it's 200,000 visitors a year, sees a lot of need for maintenance, proactive maintenance, but especially a historic building. Mechanics Hall is very much the same kind of a thing. Yeah, you do need to continue to reinvest, and so we raise money regularly to help us do that, and we're always trying to operate in a frugal way as an organization.
Yeah, and you manage, too, to keep prices relatively affordable. I mean, affordable for this area because it could be the traveling company of a Broadway show that might do Boston and then come here and the ticket price is different. The parking price is different. The experience is different.
That's right. And the secret there is that we don't often control those ticket prices. Often it belongs to the show itself. And that's a double-edged sword. Sometimes people imagine that if the ticket is $70 in Worcester and $140 in Boston, then I'm going to go see the show in Boston because it's better. Well, it's not better or worse. It's exactly the same. The same performer, the same set, the same lights and costumes. It rolls off of a series of tractor-trailer trucks and performs in the Opera House in Boston just the same way it does at the Hanover Theater in Worcester.
But what about the timing? Because, again, another question I had for you was, back in the day, maybe I'm revealing my age now, but when I was younger and my family used to go to the theater, the Colonial, the Wang Center before it was, or the Bach Center before it was the Wang Center was called, I don't remember, the Metropolitan or something. And we used to go in there and see, I saw, if anybody listening remembers, Sandy Duncan, who was the original Peter Pan. You saw first run, they would test a show in Boston or another community and then go to New York. And you don't see that as much anymore. Like they had Waitress in Boston, which I saw, and it's coming to Worcester this year. How do we get more of those first run shows?
I think generally a show opening in Boston before it goes to New York is it's hard. The industry's has moved away from that. It's moved away from regional tryouts of pre-Broadway productions. So typically now they'll start at a regional theater like American Repertory Theater in Cambridge. Mm-hmm. Several Broadway shows have started there and moved into New York. But they generally they open in New York and run to previews for a month or more before a press opening, rather than go to the time and dollars to mount that production in another city. So I don't know if Boston is better or worse positioned to bring that kind of business back, but it's a tough haul because the industry's gone away from it. I think that generally the shows, once they are in New York and have some success commercially and then hit the road and go on tour, generally they will come to Boston first. Boston is a 6 million person metro area and Worcester is a 1 million person metro area. And so just by virtue of the size of the market. There are exceptions. Just this last year, Bright Star played Worcester and will never, I believe, play Boston. And there have been several others too. But generally speaking, the bigger shows will play Boston first and then come to Worcester the following year or thereafter.
Now, we're even talking about Broadway, but there's all sorts of other acts that come in. And that brings, you've had comedians, obviously. You've had wonderful, everyone knows about the Christmas shows. But you're showing movies, you're doing a Phantom of the Opera silent movie with the organ. So, and you've had some classical and some, I think you did river dance and things like that. What about competition for shows I know we all work together. You work with Mechanics Hall folks, you work with the DCU Center to provide a different kind of, how is the Hanover different when you start getting into things like comedy and movies, even though that isn't the bulk of it? How is that different?
Movies, we do silent films, underscored by our mighty Wurlitzer pipe organ, the way they were played 60 years ago. For concerts and comedy, it's a big piece of what we do. It's about half of what we do. Half is Broadway and half is everything else. Those one-night performances, anybody from Diana Krall to the Moody Blues to Dave Chappelle, those we generally we don't compete with one another in Worcester. We're all doing very different things. The DCU Center presents performers that are sell more tickets than would be appropriate for them to play in a venue the size of us. And if a performer plays in the Hanover Theater, then they don't sell enough tickets to play in the DCU Center.
Or they choose not to, because I know some artists want a different feel.
They do.
Some artists that I've talked to, like to go to a smaller venue because they like that intimacy.
They do, but either way, it's been determined by the artist where they'd rather play or by the tickets they sell. It's not the two venues competing against one another. Similarly with Mechanics Hall, they are a much better acoustic hall than we are. They're a perfect venue for symphony, for classical music. We do very little of that. We try to stay out of their lane, frankly. And I think they've had some of their most successful years since the time that the Hanover Theater opened. And I think there was some concern early on that we would compete, and we just haven't found that to be the case.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And that's excellent. So you did about 230 shows, performances last year. You had more than 210,000 visitors. Is that where you thought you would be 10 years ago? Where you thought you'd be today on your 10th anniversary?
Yeah, we certainly aspired to that. I think that we were more conservative in our estimates, and I think responsibly so. But I think we sure had aspirations to be here. Yeah, absolutely. I'll just finish the prior thought. The competition isn't Worcester. The competition is venues outside of Worcester. The competition is Boston, because if Bonnie Raitt plays the Blue Hills Bank Pavilion, she's not playing Worcester that year, right? And so it is it's about helping Worcester come into its own as a discrete market. We are in the Boston digital media market, meaning that when you watch network television, you're watching Boston-based network television.
We used to have two actually, commercial back in the day, 27 and 3, Channel 3, which got bought by New England Cable News. So you're right. We don't have the commercial, like Springfield has its own commercial TV.
Right. So in that way, we really are at a disadvantage relative to Providence or Hartford, in that, Providence is a good comparison. They're equidistant from Boston, as is Worcester, but they have Providence. They have Rhode Island network television, and so it's a very different thing. So they are able to run a show the same year it plays Boston. We will not. It'll always be either the year before or after, and that's generally true with performers as well. Sometimes you can make the case to the agent that they're better served to play Boston in November and Worcester in April, or vice versa. But often, they'll run Boston one year and then Worcester the next.
What were one of the biggest surprises you had where you really wanted somebody, went out, talked to the agent, got it? What was one that was, because there are some big names. In the beginning, there weren't as many big names. I mean, you've had Jay Leno, you're having Tony Bennett, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't Tony Bennett play Boston? I don't know if he is, but why would he come to Worcester instead of Boston?
He does play Boston. He's out there a bunch, and anybody that's out there as much as he is, I think, God bless him at his age, he's doing as many shows as he's doing, I think plays both cities. And I think most performers play both cities. It's just that sometimes the very biggest only come around every couple of years, and that every couple of years is been long enough that they'll go back to Boston. If they're touring every year, then they'll play Worcester. It's the ones that tour a little less frequently. That said, we've had some successes there. The first big one was probably Neil Young in 2010, and then there have been some others. We just had David Blaine,
the magician.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, just because his touring schedule was such that the date that he had available, none of the suitable venues in Boston were available, and it worked to our benefit. So things like that happen once in a while. John Mellencamp last fall. But, we have a very busy calendar. This year we've got a lot of music, really. After Tony Bennett, there's, Diana Krall, Tower of Power, Pink Martini, Temptations and the Four Tops.
Oh, I saw that one. Yep.
Yeah,
that's in the end of September.
It is. And then Kansas is here in November. And there's a bunch that hasn't been announced yet that'll be announced over
Can
the
we
next
announce
month.
any?
I don't. Well, if they were top of my mind, I would throw them out at you.
Because I did look at the schedule. Is there anything we talked about? You, like we have said, trying to get more shows to come this way, maybe first before Providence. I mean, I don't know. I've seen some shows go. I saw Cabaret win all three cities in different order, but not every show goes to Providence first. I have noticed as a Broadway lover, when I look at tickets pop up and I say, okay, I have the choice of three venues. I can go to Worcester, I can go to Boston, I can go to Providence. Where should I go?
Yeah, Providence usually is not competition for us because they can run Providence, Worcester back to back because it is a different market. It's the Boston conflict. So typically people will, go to see Boston if they see something that they really want to see. If they're ready to wait until the following season, they can come see it in Worcester. And we have found, polling our own audiences, we have found that we've not really stolen patrons away from Broadway and Boston. Rather, we've found a market that was underserved. There were people that just didn't go see a Broadway
because they
show.
couldn't afford it.
Right. Or they went to see one a year and now they see six a year. It really is finding an audience or creating an audience for theater that wasn't there before.
And also going back to this whole experience, because you bought in 2015 a building adjacent and turned it into the Conservatory for Performing Arts. And why did you feel the need for that? I know there used to be, this is not a Juilliard, but it's not a typical high school. They don't go and take math, science, and then take a theater class. This is more of an after-school program.
It is, that's right.
For school and some adult classes?
Starting in 2010, we've been doing a youth summer program focused first just on teenagers, and then in the more recent years, we've added the pre-teenagers and younger kids down to age 6. But we've done those summer programs, so for what's that been, 9 years now. And in those programs that take place in July and August, the registration opens in February, and those programs will fill up in literally less than 60 seconds in February when they go on sale.
Like a concert? They
right.
literally sit there?
That's right. Because
I know kids that have done it.
So we go out to the parents and say, refresh your browser, make sure you're logged on, and it's like buying tickets to I don't know, the biggest concert, the Taylor Swift. You go on and you be ready. And I think that's what clued us in initially, that there was just an enormous unmet demand there. So we've tripled the size of the summer program since then, and we're still filling up as quickly as we were. And then we feel that there's a real dearth of extracurricular theater education in central Massachusetts. There are places where you can go take a class in music or in dance, but there was nothing in theater. Foothills Theater closed 10 years ago, and Performing Arts School of Worcester closed somewhere prior to that. So there hasn't been anything in a decade. And it's a need that we feel strongly about, and I'll speak for myself, I feel that it's just really important. It's important to me and my own kids, and it just helps bring kids out of their shell. Not every child is going to be a Broadway star any more than every child is going to be a quarterback, but everyone needs to be able to stand in front of a group of 10 to 1 million people at some point and speak with self-confidence and authority and think with creativity. STEM is teaching tomorrow's workers, but it's not teaching tomorrow's CEOs. We need creative education for tomorrow, for all of us.
And again, it's not just the performance side either, coming from a mother of a child who is now in college for theater management. You've got lighting, you've got costume, you've got makeup, and you have to figure out how to pull all that together, and you offer those classes.
That's right. We actually focus on that quite a bit. Because that's where there are actually jobs, good-paying jobs in the theater industry right now.
I hope so.
They are.
I've got to have some loans on my back here.
It's a tough road to go as a performer, as an actor. There's a lot of competition out there. It wouldn't dissuade anybody from doing it, but you'd have to do it with your eyes open. But in theater technology and design and management, that's where you can really build a successful career.
Oh, I think you just made my day on that one. So there's a couple of quick things before we wrap up. There's the theater district, and the state and city have put in funds to, like I said, add bike lanes and everything, and they're going to talk about doing some outside venues. And in that building, too, where the conservatory is, you have function space. You also have a restaurant that's opening soon.
That's right. Either late fall or early spring. this year. And then 1 year behind that will be the plaza. The city's in construction, or soon to be in construction, for a new plaza right on our front doorstep. So that restaurant will have outdoor seating. And that plaza we will program aggressively with outdoor entertainment, outdoor activities, things like Zumba classes and beer gardens.
Outside?
And outdoor performances. Absolutely.
Zumba outside?
Yes.
Oh, I like that one.
We wanted, again, it's a way for us to reach out beyond our doors and make the district, make the neighborhood a place where you want to come.
Right. And as we wrap up, again, the one thing I don't want to lose sight of is this business improvement district. It's called a BID, and it might sound kind of dry to folks, but it's very, very important in making that experience, really come to life in your area. Can you quickly give me the status of why you're doing it and what it means for people that are going to come downtown?
Sure. We in the restoration of the theater have made this a massive investment. The city's made an $11 million investment in the Main Street program. Lots of other investments downtown, and those really help to revitalize the district, but it can't just be the buildings. It has to be the way the whole neighborhood feels and functions, and it has to stay clean and friendly. The BID, the Business Improvement District, is a way for all the property owners right in this neighborhood to chip in a little bit and use those funds to put a clean and safe team on the street. People that are out there spray washing sidewalks, picking up trash,
flowers,
helping visitors, putting flowers out.
Lights.
That's right. And helping visitors feel safe and friendly and welcome. And that's about leveraging those investments and making sure that the neighborhood feels to visitors the way it needs to.
Now, I know there's about 100 other questions we could talk about because Discover Central Mass in its own is doing a million things. I went online. It's like the 9 top places to karaoke your day away, and then places to bring your dog for the month. And they're constantly doing things. And the Hanover has been a real catalyst. I think I see that term used a lot for you from city officials, state officials, talking about the Hanover being one of the original catalysts of the arts in Worcester. So, Troy Siebels, thank you so much for being here today. President, CEO of the Hanover Theater and the Conservatory for the Performing Arts. We hope you come back so we can chat maybe about, in a couple years, what's going to be happening on the 20th anniversary.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Of the 30. So now I'm sure if you're Batman, you're probably headed for a phone booth. Wait, there are no phone booths today, but in any case, thanks for being here, Troy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
That's Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Have a wonderful day. Wonderful day. Wonderful day.